The email hit his inbox at 3:02 a.m. The subject line alone made his heart drop. Your student visa status, final notice. Chaik stared at the screen, barely breathing. After 3 years of blood, sweat, and borrowed money, it had come to this. If he didn't resolve his visa issue within 30 days, he'd be deported back to Nigeria. Just like that, all his dreams of becoming an architect would vanish. With no family left to call and no money for a lawyer, Chaik did what any desperate man might. He reached out to Jide, his street-smart roommate who always knew someone. Jide didn't disappoint. 2 days later, they sat at a corner table in a dim cafe opposite a woman in designer sunglasses and a haughty expression. Her name was Amira Balogun, the only daughter of a real estate magnate, and she had problems of her own. Her father had threatened to cut her off financially if she didn't settle down and start acting like a responsible adult. In other words, get married. You help me look like a serious woman, and I help you stay in the country. Clean, simple. No strings, she said, sipping her iced coffee. Chaik hesitated. And my girlfriend, he muttered, more to himself than to her. Amira gave a cold smile. That's not my business. What matters is, we both get what we want. Against his better judgment, and the dull ache in his chest, Chaik shook her hand. The deal was done. But as the ink dried on the marriage papers weeks later, none of them realized that this fake love story was about to spiral into a very real emotional storm. The wedding was held in a rose-covered garden behind Amira's father's mansion in Ikoyi. Everything screamed luxury, marble arches, silk tents, and a live string quartet flown in from Cape Town. Yet behind the glamour was a pair of strangers rehearsing smiles and clutching hands like stage actors in a doomed play. Chaik stood stiffly in his rented tuxedo, barely able to concentrate on the vows being whispered. His mind kept drifting to Adiz, his real girlfriend, who had no idea what was happening. They had been together for almost 2 years, and she had supported him through every exam, every panic attack, every sleepless night. She believed they had a future. And here he was, about to exchange "I do" with someone else, all for a green card. Amira, on the other hand, played the role effortlessly. Her makeup was flawless, her smile camera-ready. As she slipped the ring on his finger, she whispered, "Don't faint, Chaik. We still have photos to take." He forced a laugh. It sounded like someone else's voice. The reception was filled with elite guests, champagne flutes, and fake laughter. Amira's father looked pleased. For now, his rebellious daughter was a married woman. He even patted Chaik's back and muttered, "You're good for her. Keep her in line." As night fell, they returned to Amira's penthouse apartment, the one they'd agreed to share, to keep up appearances for immigration. Amira kicked off her heels and poured herself a drink. "We're officially husband and wife, Rumi," she said, raising her glass. Chaik didn't respond. He just stared at his phone, where 12 missed calls from Adiz glowed like a warning light. He had crossed a line, and he knew the truth couldn't stay buried for long. The morning after the wedding, Chaik woke up on the plush couch in Amira's living room, still dressed in his wrinkled tuxedo shirt. Amira had taken the bedroom, of course. They had agreed on separate spaces. He rubbed his temples, trying to shake off the anxiety gnawing at him. His phone buzzed again, Adiz. She had left another voice note, "Baby, I saw something on Instagram. Someone tagged you in wedding pictures. Tell me it's not what I think. Please, Chaik, call me back." His stomach turned. He knew he had to call her, but what could he possibly say? That he married someone else just to stay in the country? That he still loved her and nothing had changed, except everything? Cowardice 1. He switched his phone to silent and buried it beneath a cushion. Meanwhile, Amira was humming in the kitchen, frying eggs like she didn't just ruin 2 lives the night before. "Morning, husband," she called out, flashing him a playful smirk. "Want some toast?" Chaik sighed. "Amira, we need to talk. We can't keep pretending like this is some TV show. My girlfriend knows something's up." Amira's smile faded, but only slightly. "That's your mess. I did my part. You wanted to stay, I helped. Don't start catching feelings now." Chaik stood up, frustrated. "You think this is a game, but people's lives are involved." Amira turned serious. "Exactly. So protect your life and stop looking like a guilty man. Immigration doesn't care about your conscience. Smile when the cameras flash." Later that day, Adiz showed up at Chaik's old apartment, eyes red from crying, holding her phone out. "Explain this, Chaik," she demanded, her voice trembling. "Are you married?" And just like that, the web of lies began to unravel. Chaik stood frozen as Adiz's voice cracked, her trembling fingers clutching the phone screen that showed a wedding photo, him and Amira smiling beneath a flower arch. "I waited for you to call me back," she whispered. "I prayed this wasn't true." He opened his mouth to explain, but no words came out. What excuse could make this right? "Adiz, please, it's not what you think. It's fake. The marriage. It's not real." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Not real? You stood before God and witnesses and said vows. How is that fake?" He stepped closer. "I was going to be deported. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't tell you because I knew you'd leave me." "And you thought lying would make me stay?" she asked, her voice rising. "You think I wouldn't fight for you? After everything we've been through?" Silence hung heavy between them. Adiz backed away, her heart broken. "You chose the easy way out. But love isn't supposed to be convenient, Chaik." Meanwhile, Amira watched everything from the hallway. She had followed him, curious, and now stood quietly, arms folded. When Adiz stormed past her, Amira's eyes met Chaik's, cold, unreadable. Back at the penthouse, Amira slammed the door behind them. "You went to see her? You're risking everything we built for some college romance?" Chaik exploded. "Don't talk about what we built like this is love. You paid me to play your husband." Her face darkened. "Yes. But I didn't pay you to be sloppy. Immigration checks are coming. We need photos. Stories. A shared timeline." She walked off, heels clicking angrily on the marble floor. That night, Chaik lay awake, guilt squeezing his chest like a vice. He had a fake wife, a heartbroken girlfriend, and 30 days until his first immigration interview. And for the first time, he wasn't sure who he was anymore. The apartment felt like a war zone, polished, expensive, silent. Amira didn't speak to Chaik for 2 days after the confrontation with Adiz. She busied herself with charity events and designer fittings, all while projecting the perfect image of a newlywed socialite. Chaik, on the other hand, was drowning in coursework, guilt, and sleepless nights. Then came the immigration notice. They were summoned for an in-person interview in 3 weeks. A standard procedure to verify the authenticity of their marriage. Amira handed him a folder of information, favorite foods, vacation plans, pet names. We need to memorize all of this. Start acting like we're in love, even when no one's watching. He stared at her. We're not in love, Amira. She shrugged. Maybe not. But we'll be good at pretending. To his surprise, Amira started making an effort beyond surface-level lies. She dragged him to brunch with her friends, made him laugh during their couples photo shoots, and even learned to cook his favorite jollof rice, badly, but still. One evening, as they practiced answering questions, she glanced at him and said, "You're not as dull as I thought." He laughed, caught off guard. "And you're not as heartless." That night, after too much wine and laughter that came a little too easily, Amira stood too close. "Do you ever wonder if pretending could turn into something real?" she whispered. Chaik hesitated. "You know I still love Adiz." Amira's smile faltered, but she didn't move. "And yet you're here. With me." She walked away before he could answer, but her words hung in the air. The line between fake and real had started to blur, and Chaik knew they were both in dangerous territory. The days leading up to the immigration interview passed like a fever dream, late-night rehearsals of their love story, forced kisses for the camera, and too many close calls that made Chaik question everything. Amira had grown softer, more vulnerable, even sincere. Sometimes, he caught her watching him like she was trying to remember something important she hadn't yet felt. But Chaik couldn't forget Adiz. She stopped replying to his messages. Her friends unfollowed him. Rumors flew around campus. Some said he'd married Amira for her money, others whispered he'd been cheating all along. The truth was messier than gossip ever could be. The night before the interview, Chaik went to see Adiz one last time. She lived in a shared apartment across town, and when she opened the door, the sight of him made her expression harden. But she let him in. "I'm not here to beg," Chaik began. "I just want you to hear the truth, from me." She crossed her arms. "I'm listening." He told her everything, the notice of deportation, the desperation, the deal with Amira. The pressure. The guilt. He didn't cry, but his voice cracked when he said, "I was trying to stay for my future. I just didn't realize I was destroying the best part of it." Adiz sat quietly for a long time. Then she said, "You made your choice, Chaik. But choices come with consequences. I still love you, but love without trust is broken glass. You can't walk on it without bleeding." He stood to leave. "I'm sorry, Adiz. More than you'll ever know." Back at the penthouse, Amira was waiting in her nightgown, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "So, you went to her?" Chaik didn't lie. "Yes." She handed him the wine. "Then let's make tomorrow count. One last act, for the both of us." The immigration building loomed over them like a courthouse, gray and impersonal. Chaik's palms were sweaty as they waited in the corridor outside interview room 3. Amira sat beside him, flawless in a beige suit, her fingers loosely intertwined with his. Her perfume was soft, calming, dangerously so. "You ready?" she whispered. Chaik nodded, but his heartbeat said otherwise. "Let's just survive this." They were called in by a stern-faced immigration officer who didn't smile once. He gestured for them to sit across from his desk. "Mr. and Mrs. Balagan," he said, flipping through a thick folder. "This is a routine interview. Nothing to fear, if the marriage is legitimate." For the next hour, they were grilled separately. Chaik answered questions about Amira's toothpaste brand, her favorite song, the color of their bedsheets. He had memorized every detail, and he delivered like a man clinging to a lifeline. Amira went next. Her answers flowed easily, too easily. She knew everything. She even made the officer laugh. Afterward, they were told to wait in the lobby while the file was reviewed. As they sat in silence, Amira reached for his hand. "I wasn't pretending in there, you know," she said softly. "Not all of it." Chaik looked at her, unsure of what to say. The lines had blurred so much now that even he wasn't sure where real ended and fake began. Minutes later, the officer returned. "We're satisfied with your responses. Your marriage is approved pending standard processing. You'll receive the residency confirmation within 30 days." Relief washed over Chaik. He had won, but why did it feel like he had lost? As they walked to the car, Amira slipped her arm into his. "We make a good team, don't we?" Chaik forced a smile. But all he could think about was Adiz. Weeks passed, and the immigration letter finally arrived. Chaik had been granted residency. The document sat unopened on the kitchen counter while Amira twirled around the living room, playing loud Afrobeats and dancing barefoot on the marble floor. "You're free now," she said, smiling. "Congratulations, Mr. Legal Resident." But Chaik wasn't celebrating. He stared at the letter like it was both a blessing and a curse. He had achieved what he set out to do, but at what cost? He had hurt Adiz, become entangled in a lie that now had a heartbeat, and gotten too close to someone who was never supposed to matter. Amira noticed. "You're distant. Again." "I don't know what this is anymore," he admitted. "I feel like I lost something real trying to save something fake." Amira's smile faded. She sat down across from him. "Maybe it started fake, but not all of it was. I didn't plan to feel anything for you, Chaik. But I did." He looked into her eyes. "And now?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Do you still love her?" Chaik hesitated. "Yes, but part of me is confused now. I see you, Amira. The real you. And it's not what I expected." Silence settled between them, deep and honest. Later that night, Amira brought him a small cake with "New Beginnings" written in icing. No camera. No performance. Just two people caught in a storm of their own making. As they ate in silence, the air grew heavier with questions neither wanted to ask. Were they still pretending? Could this be real? What happened next? Outside, the rain began to fall gently, washing the city clean. Inside, two hearts sat on the edge of something new, and uncertain. Chaik sat in the university library, staring at the blueprints of a mock design project, but his mind wasn't on architecture. It hadn't been for weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw two women, Adiz, with her fierce loyalty and broken heart, and Amira, with her guarded smile that now came so easily. He had thought getting his residency would bring clarity. Instead, it brought more confusion. He texted Adiz. "Can we talk? One last time." This time, she replied, "Meet me at the old campus garden." Sunset. Chaik arrived early. The garden was quiet, the air golden with evening light. Adiz stood beneath a jacaranda tree, arms folded, eyes distant. She looked calm, but not cold. "I heard you got your papers," she said softly. "I did. And Amira?" She caught feelings. "And I think I did too. But not like with you." Adiz looked up. "Then why are you still with her?" He didn't have an answer. "I loved you, Chaik," she said, voice breaking. But I need someone who chooses me, not someone stuck between two stories. I want to be that person, he said. Then prove it, she whispered, walking away. But don't come back if you're unsure. That night, Chike returned to the penthouse. Amira was waiting, barefoot in one of his old university hoodies. You saw her, she said. I did. Silence. Then, do you still love me? Chike sighed. I don't know if I ever truly did. Maybe I just needed you. Maybe you needed me too. Amira nodded slowly. Then let's not lie to ourselves anymore. Their story had run its course. By morning, Chike packed his bags. The fake marriage had given him legal status. But it couldn't give him peace. 3 months later, Chike walked across the graduation stage with his cap tilted slightly, his face calm but thoughtful. The auditorium roared with applause for every student, but he heard only one voice, Adiz, cheering from somewhere in the crowd. He didn't know if she'd truly forgiven him, but she came. And that meant everything. After leaving Amira's penthouse, Chike moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. He took on freelance architectural work, began mentoring other international students, and tried, day by day, to rebuild what he'd broken inside himself. Healing wasn't quick, but it was steady. Amira moved on too. Her father had finally started taking her seriously, not because of the marriage, but because she began managing part of the family's real estate firm. She was sharp, professional, and kinder than when they first met. They texted occasionally, short, respectful, and never emotional. One afternoon, Chike met Adiz at their favorite suya spot. She wore a yellow dress, the same shade as the one she wore the first day they met on campus. They ate quietly, but the silence was no longer bitter, it was full of memories. I never stopped loving you, Chike finally said. But I had to become someone better before I deserved to say that. Adiz looked at him. And are you that person now? I'm getting there, he replied. She smiled, slow and genuine. Good. Because love isn't about pretending. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. They walked side by side toward the evening sun, not holding hands yet, but walking in the same direction again. Their story wasn't perfect. But for the first time, it was real.